My name's Mike Laws and I am indeed Head of Reporting and Head of Programme Efficiency for Crossrail. I have overall responsibility for the quality of reporting here, for reporting discipline, for coordinating the efficiency programme and for spreading best practice.
My name is Esther English and I am a Programme Controls Engineer. I support the Programme Controls team and the Head of Controls with any analysis they require.
So by way of context, Crossrail, we are generating a high-capacity metro railway for London. We will be delivering a railway which runs from Reading in the west to Shenfield in the east, through 42 kilometres of newly built tunnels through the centre of London. So we are a £14.8 billion fully funded programme. We have 35 projects. We have 50 contracts in play at the moment. So it's a complex endeavour which requires a large amount of coordination and significant levels of management information to support decision making. So this is a picture of the Queen when she came to visit us earlier in the year. At the point we unveiled that when the Operation Crossrail will be known as the Elizabeth Line, and it illustrates the fact that we have a large number of high-profile stakeholders and we have very many high-profile interested parties. A little bit about controls on Crossrail and how reporting fits into that. The number of functions, cost, performance management, change control, risk planning and performance analysis, all of which generate output which form the reports which go forward and support the executive. So what we're principally trying to do is inform the conversation between the project teams and the executive and the sponsors. So there's two distinct interfaces at which we try and enable decision making and discussion to be had. The purpose of the Programme Controls team, we provide accurate information to the programme and its stakeholders. We act as the conscience for Crossrail and we provide performance analysis and recommendations to support better decision making. So the activities undertaken to generate the information will be explained by others in later presentations, but we'll be covering the processes by which the information is gathered, structured and interpreted to provide business intelligence to the organisation's collective brain and to help manage the job. So what we do is we try and ensure that the maximum value is extracted from the information generated by the project teams by providing accurate, timely and useful reports through a combination of IT-enabled systems and via the normal sort of day-to-day discussions as you'd expect from a project or a programme of this type. So the many functions, as we've said, that feed into the reporting processes, which means it's important for us to have a wide understanding of what the teams do, what information we have available to us and what's important. So the reporting function ensures the performance of the programme is reported accurately and consistently to our multiple stakeholders, and the outputs of this are hopefully an increased confidence and control, a collective understanding of performance, a better understanding of risk, improved performance, and we provide assurance to our stakeholders that value for money is being achieved.
So it's not always easy to establish effective reporting in an organisation, and its perceived value can fluctuate. So on this slide we identify the characteristics of reports and highlight what poor reporting looks like in the red text and contrast it with what good reporting looks like at the other end of the spectrum. So to pick up on a few prominent issues, there is a consistent message that poor reporting tends to be characterised as very long and poorly designed reports, which have a lack of actionable insight. These reports are often badly implemented and ultimately this makes them unhelpful and uninspiring. So what we've talked about here are the symptoms rather than the causes of poor reporting, and we need to understand what leads to these issues and why they continue to be prevalent even when we're aware of them. So some of the causes can include not knowing what to select from the variety of data and information available to make the report fit for purpose. So often you have to select from conflicting metrics. For example, do you look at the past or the future, a bigger picture or the detail, also looking at financial versus non-financial data. Therefore, when considering what to include, you need to find an effective compromise and make sure that that report shows a clear picture. The foundations for success also need to be in place, because otherwise the report is the main focus and how it's generated rather than what it needs to show. And this can be a symptom of organisational issues such as unclear strategy, poor data management or organisational silos. Poor reports also lead to a downward spiral of lowering standards within reporting. They are initially perceived as low value, which in turn reduces the importance placed on their production and the effort in designing them. This then further reduces their quality and their value. It's also worth noting that information provided may be considered meaningless if there isn't sufficient explanation and understanding of what's being shown. For example, if you don't provide training or guidance on how to interpret the data or what its implications are, then any potential value of that information can be missed. So once you're aware of these issues and what causes them, it is possible to put in place steps to mitigate them. So Crossrail has tried to do this by improving their reporting and avoiding the common pitfalls by keeping their reports concise with only the information relevant to the audience included. We've tried to make things simple and not overcomplicate them by making them too comprehensive. We've designed our reports to be created quickly and efficiently with as little manual interference as possible, and this helps to ensure they are delivered in a timely manner and consistently to the same time frame. This way, effort can then be placed on understanding the performance of the programme rather than on just churning out multiple reports. We also put a high focus on the formatting of our reports to make sure that they look professional and that we have properly formatted numbers, charts, and have the key insights immediately available. This makes them more attractive to the users of the reports and maintains their attention throughout.
So just as the programme is diverse and complex, users of the information are also. So this requires a range of reports to be produced at a variety of levels of detail and for different stakeholders. So I mentioned earlier about the conversations that we're trying to support between the projects and the programme executive and the programme executive and our sponsors. So this slide illustrates this a little bit. The project dashboards you can see at the bottom, they're generated periodically. In Crossrail that means once every 28 days, as is the board report. The dashboards are there to support a conversation between the projects and the programme executive, and the board report, and as you can see at the top in green, the semi-annual construction report. This is generated once every 6 months. Those two documents are used to act as a record of the programme's performance, part of an audit record, and to inform a discussion between the executive and our sponsors. So just as it's impossible to be simple, general and accurate simultaneously, we're doing our best to tailor the reports to meet the needs of the end user, so it's focused on the discussions which we're trying to support. So by way of illustration, this is a board report here. It's a good example of how we tailor the approach, our approach to our audience. So it goes to the executive committee, the Crossrail board and the TfL board, and so the audience isn't just limited to Crossrail. So we had, at the beginning of the programme, the original format of the report was detailed, data-rich, and potentially rather lighter on insight. So by seeking to be comprehensive, we were failing to help the user in seeing the wood from the trees. So we've redeveloped this report and redesigned it, and some years ago. It's a format which remains broadly the same today. This review was undertaken in-house and using readily available MS Office applications that only took a few weeks to complete. So what we have is our 4 key performance questions. Are we safe? Are we within funding? Are we on time? And are we world class? And are we world class is analogous to quality at Crossrail. And the summary pages are in blue to provide easy navigation around the document, and the detailed pages underneath are in white to help differentiate between the levels of detail, so the user can skim the skim the report for the blue pages and then dip into the white when deemed necessary. Interestingly, our key performance indicators are also structured in this way, meaning we have a coherence of focus around how we're managing the job. So what we're trying to generate here with the board report again is telling a story. We're trying to explain to the users of the report how the program has got on during the period, and an example here how we've ringed where a particular issue might manifest itself in the report. So we would provide a narrative explanation at the front in the current issues as to what has happened. This is either a positive thing or occasionally a negative issue, and then we express how that issue has manifested itself in our performance management system, both in terms of cost through the various measures and on time in the on-time section, and then again in more detail in the appendix, where there is a single page dedicated to each of the major products. The board report's a good example of how we've redesigned our report and implemented it quickly with little complexity. Therefore, I guess the takeaway from that is that changing your reporting doesn't have to take a long time, nor does it require major investment, but it does require a intent from the board or the users of the information to be receptive to changes and to recognise that where change is required. We talk about reporting enablers now. So whilst the reports are the outputs of the system, the whole of the controls community at Crossrail work together to deliver their elements. It's a combination of effective systems and staff with their skills and the structures which we've put in place, which are supported by the Crossrail values, which help manage the processes, which generate the information, which supports the generation of the reports. So the outputs of the reports are an informed stakeholder group, and I've said a couple of times, improved communication around the project, and with the aspiration of improved decision making. Not necessarily better outcomes, it's better choices made. So the outcomes of our effective reporting system are assurance and confidence. So that's assurance that we're doing things in the right way, and confidence that what we're saying is representative of what's actually going on the program. Let's look very briefly at our reporting hierarchy. You can see the periodic contractor dashboard at the bottom. This is the single source of truth, the data which our contractors provide to us. They're obliged to do this as part of the works information. It's a template which has been foisted upon them. The project teams then take that information and feed our various bearer systems with that information, and more on that in a moment. Data goes to our data warehouse, and then from that we then extract dashboards, which Esther will describe the production of, and then further up into the generation of the board report, and finally our semi-annual construction report. One of the principal things to talk about here is how we have made sure we have coherence between our organisational work and cost breakdown structures, so there is coherence in approach through each of those structures. So again, briefly on systems, we use Prism G2 for cost, SAP for our financial operations, Revo for health and safety performance measurement and data collection, Bentley for contract administration, and Primavera P6 for schedule management. And all the data from those general systems tend to be fed from the contractor dashboards, and then we extract from them using ClickView to a certain extent, but principally Microsoft Excel and other MS Office type applications. We use those as our reporting layer. So the setup allows Easy extract of data and quickly, and facilitates quick and accurate reporting. Significant investment in the systems required for data capture, management, and storage. And there's less investment in terms of cost at the reporting level.
So we've talked about what we're trying to achieve in terms of effective reporting and the systems and processes we have in place to help us meet this challenge. But as with most processes, you need to ensure you have people with sufficient capability and skills to match up to what's required of them. The Crossrail has achieved this by ensuring it is an attractive place to work for direct employees, and also by generating a number of commercial mechanisms to supply specialist staff for both short and long-term assignments.
So let's just have a brief look at our reporting cycle. So we operate a 13-period year. Each period is 28 days long, apart from P13, which gives us the balance of the year. But it's a 6-week process, so activities from the contractor side start working in week 3 of the preceding period, with the activities going up the organisation until we get to the final week 4, when the Crossrail board takes the board report, and then we have our discussions with our sponsors. So we talk about now a little bit of around the creation of our reports. Our reporting rhythm determines the order of production. So these are the 3 reports we'll focus on in the next few slides and explain what the reports are for and how they're produced. So what you can see is the project dashboard. Again, Esther's going to cover that shortly. There are 23 dashboards generated on a periodic basis, which feed 1 board report and 6 or 7 board reports, depending on, bear in mind we have a 13-period year, support the production of 1 semi-annual construction report. And the amount of effort required to generate the report becomes progressively greater as you read left to right across that series.
So to put what we've talked about into a practical context, we're going to walk you through how we create the project dashboards that are presented at the Programme Delivery Board. So the Programme Delivery Board is a meeting that's held every 4 weeks, where the programme leads have the opportunity to question the various project managers on the performance of their specific projects. Due to the nature of these meetings and the time constraints around them, it's important that the participants have succinct information that accurately reflects the status of each project. On this page here, we can see the variety of reports that are used in these meetings. But for the purposes of this presentation, we're just going to focus on the project dashboard, which is at the top left-hand side. The process starts with the contractor dashboard that Mike mentioned a little bit earlier. This is an example of the dashboard that all contractors are asked to populate with period end data. And this comes from their own reporting system and is consistent throughout the whole of the programme. The information contained on this dashboard contains the building blocks of everything we need for the 4 performance measures that the programme is concerned with. Once this has been received, project specialists on site then enter the relevant data directly onto the Crossrail systems. It's then reviewed to detect any errors and inconsistencies. The central controls team then extract the data from our data warehouse and from the other systems that we have and upload it into an Excel worksheet. It's once again reviewed and its accuracy is verified to make sure it's correct. You can see on the top of the screen there are graphs and charts that form part of the dashboard, and these complete automatically after the upload of information, which reduces the risk of error as there is very little manual intervention. These graphs are then copied and pasted as an image onto a blank A3 PowerPoint template. As it's an image, it enables central control over the data presented, and it prevents any manual override by the project team. In parallel, the project teams receive a draft version of the dashboard, and they can compile their commentary, which you can see on the screen at the bottom. This has to be done by the project teams because It involves a significant level of understanding to interpret the data accurately and to show what's actually going on the project. We then combine the two sections into the final dashboard. This is what it looks like. And there is a dashboard created for each project that's reviewed at the meeting. The purpose of this dashboard is to give a clear and consistent understanding of each project's performance across a range of indicators. It gives assurance to those in management that the project is progressing in the right direction and acts as a record of the project's performance at a particular time. It also prompts discussions in the meeting, especially around common issues or risks, and allows the project managers to ask for help from the central teams if they need it. An important reason why these reports are so effective is that there is open and transparent communication between the executive team and the project team. This leads to better conversations and more collaborative meetings. And the style of these dashboards helps to facilitate this transparency and understanding. It's important to note that we're not using an elaborate system to create these reports. We're using Microsoft products such as Excel and PowerPoint that most organizations already have available. As a consequence, a lot of effort has to go into the design of the report to ensure they're easy to create, easy to use, and easy to interpret. And this comes down to the people involved in the design and the process, and the expertise that they bring with them. It's also advantageous for us to use these kind of products because most people already have a basic understanding of how to use them. So we spend less time on training because they already have that existing knowledge base. So in summary, you can create relatively simple and accessible tools to achieve world-class reporting. Finally, I'm just going to talk about what happens to the data sections. They get combined into one document that's displayed on the wall during the meetings. This makes comparisons between the projects very easy and allows us to look for consistencies across their performance. It also helps us to calibrate our performance measures and make sure that we have the appropriate red, amber and green indicators.
If you I'll just try and situate you back in our reporting cycle now. So we completed the dashboards Esther's just been talking about at the end of week one. Friday week one, they were distributed to the executive via electronic means for access on their tablets or on their home computers for some light weekend reading. And on Tuesday and Wednesday of week two, we've sat at the program delivery board and we've discussed the project's performances, and we've had the open conversations based on the single source of truth which has been placed before them via the reporting team's efforts. So what this means is that the data was discussed just 9 days after the period close, we then go ahead and generate the board report from the information we've taken from those reports and other information coming from other parts of the Crossrail head office organisation like engineering, health and safety, the secretary, our external communications people, and indeed the outputs of our discussions at the PDB. So we issue our draft board report to the executive committee just 3 days after the end of the PDB. So this means we have to police the generation of the reports very effectively. We have to make sure that people do their job right and they do it first time right as much as possible, and we have to ensure that the quality of what people do is of a high standard. So having stitched all the elements of the report together, we then provide a draft to the leadership of the Secretariat and the controls teams, who then provide edits, and then we then issue again electronically on the Friday of week 2 to the Executive Committee. So we're having talked about board report, which is supported by the dashboards. We'll now talk about our semi-annual construction report. So these happen, as you'd expect, twice a year, and they're expressed by some as being the most important document which is generated by Crossrail. It is a means of expressing our performance to our sponsors, that's Transport for London and the Department for Transport. It is part of our program, our project delivery agreement with them. We must submit this at particular junctures in the year, and it is our opportunity to seek for support in a formal way should we need it, and it is our way of we are shop fronting our strategy to our sponsors. So we follow a deliberate approach. We agree changes in the format with our sponsors up front, up to 12 weeks in advance of its the deadline, and we discuss lines to take with the Secretariat, Finance, Operations, and Delivery parts of our organisation, and then we provide templates and style guidance to our contributors to ensure we have consistency of tone and style. So the SAC is structured in two parts. We have a Chairman and Chief Executive summary, which we try and ensure can be read as a standalone document, which is only sort of 6 to 8 pages long. And we have a much longer section, which again is split into two. There's a retrospective, our program performance over the preceding 6 months, and then we have a forward look of the challenges which will face us over the next 6 to 12 months. By trailing our strategy and explaining how success will manifest itself in our performance system, we can help sponsors understand what good looks like in our complex program. We can also bring forward examples from the projects where we have encountered a problem, what we've done to address it, and what the outcome's been. We do this to try and generate confidence, to express that we are doing a decent job, and to provide colour to the and context to the detail, the data held within the report. So the report takes 10 weeks to finalise, and we ensure that we have a effective process of checking and analysing the contributors' elements to make sure that when it comes down to the line, everything is consistent and coherent. So much in the same way as the board report goes through a governance and clearing system, so as with the semi-annual construction report, goes to the executive committee for their changes, having already informally consulted with finance director and the commercial and delivery teams. It then goes to the board for their review. And once they've approved it, we then turn it over to our external communications people, who then generate a beautifully illustrated report with photos from the period to help again set the context for what we've been achieving. So the 3-stage assurance process makes sure what we're delivering is of high quality.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about access to information now. So we need to make sure that our reports can be accessed effectively and that there's an appropriate sharing of information, especially around programme performance. This means the right people have to be able to have the right reports in the right format. So Crossrail takes this into consideration right at the beginning at the design stage to make sure the design matches how the report will ultimately be read. A great example of this is the board report that we've used already in the presentation to illustrate some of the great things about reporting. This was created specifically to be read on a tablet, such as an iPad. Because it's electronic, it helps with the navigation through the information and means that the graphs that are included can be enlarged to be easily read, and it means they take up less space in the report, leaving more areas for interpretation. The report itself can also be printed in booklet form, making it very portable and easy to use as a reference as you're walking around. Crossrail makes use of SharePoint and Dropbox to store its reports, and this ensures that there's appropriate access permissions in place and that version control is enforced. It also prevents documents from being lost and make sure there is a single version of the truth. On screen now is the planning homepage. And this is a great example of a landing page where team members can access different levels of information and see how they fit into the bigger picture. This includes reports that are produced daily, weekly, or periodically for different audiences. It effectively works as a library where the most up-to-date reports are easy to find and access.
Right, so finally we'll talk about some key takeaways. I think what we have at Crossrail is a effective set of reports which inform conversations, and they are specifically targeted at particular meetings, which means that we aren't generating reports for report's sake, and all of those elements are supported by effective systems and people and their skills. So we've got the conditions for success in place, and then we are focusing our efforts on delivering effective reports to support specific meetings. We've got simple tools which generate these reports, but we've invested in detail in the base system to ensure that we have high quality, coherent data sets which are then easy to manipulate. Our effective reporting needs careful planning. We understand the value in reporting, and therefore we allocate time and effort to its creation and its continuous improvement. As I've said, we've got good IT, we have simple processes, we have trained and experienced staff, and we have leadership which values effective reporting and therefore is willing to invest or recognise the value in the money and staff effort which has been put in to generate it. So that concludes our presentation. I think we're standing by to take questions now. Before we answer that, just to note that we've got Walter McCarg and we've got Richard Palczynski in the room, so they may chip in to help us answer our specialist, the things that aren't in our specialist subject.
Thank you, Mike. When tailoring and simplifying your reporting regime, do you meet any resistance from senior management or other stakeholders wanting more detail or periodicity, not less? If so, how do you overcome this?
So I think we have some fairly clear ground rules around what we discuss at particular meetings. So we have the program delivery board is a board which discusses a particular period, and we only discuss things which have happened in that period. So we try and match the discussions to the period which is relevant to the meeting. And we enforce that cadence quite robustly, and that was sort of a senior management decision on the basis that we're trying to make sure that, because things move quite quickly and we need to be able to understand the point at which we're discussing, where we're standing when we're having our discussions. So that wasn't terribly difficult for us, because the control was placed upon us by the management.
Okay, great, thank you. What level of confidence can you have in the % complete and EVM figures reported on the contractor's dashboard? How does calculation differ for prelims and main works?
Good afternoon, everyone. In terms of the level of confidence in physical % complete, on Crossrail we derive physical % complete from a quantity unit rate reporting system which has been in place from day one. It was a process that was put into the works information contract, and all tier 1 contractors are obliged to comply with it. As to the level of accuracy of it, we do regularly audit the information that comes through on quantity unit rates, but the simple truth is it has become more and more challenging. I think when we were in the early stages of the program, where we were predominantly doing main heavy civil engineering, it was quite easy to count progress on big works like tunneling and major excavations. But as we've now reached 75% complete on the program, and we're moving much more into M&E system-wide fit-out. It's becoming more difficult. The program is more reliant upon Tier 2 contractors, and so we are right in the middle right now determining what the best mechanism is of revalidating our physical percent complete. It's very much a metric that we still want to use. It's as I say, it is embedded, but we are going through the process of revalidating it. So if someone wants to ask that question again on one of the future webinars, we may have a better answer.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Next question. The semi-annual construction report is always going to be behind the latest 4-weekly report. How are urgent issues fed into the semi-annual report?
The semi-annual construction report is its purpose isn't to address urgent issues. Its purpose is to communicate strategy and to communicate program performance over the preceding 6 months. So if we have an urgent issue, there are other mechanisms by which we can engage with our sponsors. We have a dialogue with TfL on a weekly basis, and others of our external stakeholders. We have in week 4 every period the sponsors periodic review, where they seek updates from, we have guest speakers and to talk about particular issues of the period. So there are formal and informal communication channels, so the semi-annual construction report doesn't address urgent issues. It addresses strategic ones. We have other mechanisms for addressing those urgent issues.
Okay, thank you. Another question. Do you use any of the ANSI standard cost performance report in your reporting, or is it just dashboards?
I think I'll take this one too, Lee. We primarily just use dashboards.
Okay, thank you. You twice mentioned single source of truth. What do you do to verify the base data?
There's a set of progressive assurance processes which we undertake. So the information which goes into the project dashboards from the contractors is assured by the station engineering staff and the station control staff. And then there's discussions held at that level. Then at the sector level, again, the dashboards are assured and the information checked. And again, the central controls team, another element of Richard's empire, provides assurance that the information within PRISM, the cost information within in PRISM, is correct. So there is significant effort employed to assure that the data is correct. We don't allow tinkering around the edges of the data after the period close, which provides, we describe it as more of a bus service than a taxi service. So if the period closes, you missed the bus. It's not a taxi; it doesn't wait for you. And what this means is that you know that in P12, whatever the number was always going to be the number, and there's no fettling around the edges.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, what is the size of the team that pulls together all of the program reporting?
So the core team for the program board report, there's sort of about 20 contributors, all of which is a kind of a part job. So part of their responsibility in health and safety or engineering or external communications would be to generate their part of the board report. There's a core team of 3 or 4 people working full time in the reporting sector, and there's a few other people dotted around. But the cost team, everyone, all the various teams generate their own elements for it. So it's very much a team effort for what we're doing.
Okay, lovely, thank you. The next question says, have you encountered challenges with getting the required and accurate information and data for your reports? What are they and how do you resolve this?
So I can honestly say that I've been in Crossrail since last March, and I've never once had a problem getting the information required to compile a report. So I think, as Esther mentioned, I mentioned, the management has worked very hard to generate a collaborative working environment here, and that sort of level of transparency which that has engendered means that the flow of information is usually excellent, and from time to time when I have to go looking for an answer to a specific question, it's always forthcoming, and I think we're very we recognise the value in that very much.
I think the only thing I would add to that answer is there are obviously times of the year when we are under considerable pressure. So, for example, in December or in period 1, where because of our calendar we might only have 2 days instead of a week to get something out. That's when we might expect to have a real issue. But the reality has been, certainly over the last 12 months, that when we've been under significant pressure like that, all of the contributors understand, and with a bit of careful planning up front, have been able to deal with it. And in actual fact, when we've had pressure weeks like that, it has actually turned out to be a more sort of relaxed week than our normal reporting cycle. So yeah, as Mike says, the whole program, the contributors, they understand the importance of what we do in reporting, who the audience is, and they take it seriously accordingly.
Okay, thank you, Richard. One final question. What is your single biggest lesson learned regarding your reporting regime, and what could be done better?
So for me, the biggest lesson is that in order to have an effective reporting outputs, you need to invest effectively in the things which enable those reports. So I mentioned the structures and staff and skills and the systems. So in order to get and have an effective reporting system, you need to take due cognizance, recognise that it's important, and invest in the things which will enable it, and then provide an environment in which those things can flourish. So that is having come into Crossrail, and that was the one thing which struck me as the key enabler for effective reporting. In terms of what we do better, I think certainly some of the processes we spent a long time having not automated them, which meant that there was issues around errors of transposition following human intervention, but we've ironed those out now. So probably doing those automation of repetitive tasks earlier, I think that would be the thing which I would advocate as having said, I wish I'd done that earlier.
I think for me, I'm looking at the stats here. We've got roughly 160 people listening to this right now. I'd ask how many of those people out there generate their reports on PowerPoint. Leave that question open. I've never used PowerPoint before until I arrived at Crossrail, but I'm absolutely bought into the fact that the use of PowerPoint to produce the report has given us a level of flexibility in how we actually go about presenting information. So as Esther talked about, the use of simple Microsoft applications has not hindered us in our ability to produce what is presented as a very high quality report. So, I know we talk about it all the time, but that basic keep it simple really does apply in this particular case as a lesson learned.